Okay, we are live streaming now. So good afternoon, everyone. And please, when you come in, do mute your line. Stephen, I need you to mute your line. Thank you, because I can see you up here.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, if you can mute your line, because we're getting started, so that only those who are speaking will be shown. So welcome again. This is NINAS, which is the Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination. And that is a powerful name, as we found out in September. If you recall, early at the end of August, beginning of September, the announcement was made that the event in New York was going to be outside of the United Nations, and that NINAS was going to be bringing together the alliance to protest there. And not too long after, the Nigerian government reacted and sent Gambari, I believe, to the UN. Not really sure what he was going to be doing, but that's pretty much what happened. And we have seen the response around the world really to what happened in New York, and the fact that the ethnic nations were coming together, and the fact that the ethnic nations were using lots of different strategies to get their messaging out. So today we're going to be talking about a few things. One of the things that we are going to be talking about is what is NINAS? Because as we found out, a lot of the people who were at the march and also who watch these programs are still really struggling to understand how NINAS fits into this, how the Blocs fit into this, and how the people fit into this. And so we're going to have that conversation today. And I'm expecting Tony to come on board at some point when we'll be talking about that. So this is going to be very interactive. I'm not sure how many of you were following what was happening in New York, but we did have some exciting times with some counter protesters, or were they counter protesters? We'll be talking about that. We'll also talk about the fact that we have quite a bit of international media that joined us, and how that's going to impact what NINAS is doing and what the Blocs need to be doing as we go forward. So again, it's going to be a very exciting program today, and we welcome you all. Omoba, I'm just going to ask again if you can make sure that you have some images that you have ready queued up to show. And Eugene, if you can be letting people in, that'll be awesome. I'm looking to see if I see Prince, who has the videos that we're going to play, but I don't see him yet. So I will make sure that he comes on board. Okay, that's awesome. So again, I'm going to say huge congratulations to everyone that was involved in this. And if you weren't there, it's really difficult to imagine. The first week we thought was tough until we got to the second week. But the first week, there really wasn't a whole lot of people there other than us. So we had the place to ourselves. We were able to bring in generators. We were able to really have most of the time to speak. And then when we were going into the second week, we were informed that we were not going to be able to have the generator. We were not going to be able to, in fact, the first week, we were not able to keep the portable toilets overnight, and had to do some maneuvering, for the few days that we had it. And for the second week that we were there, we could not have it at all. We couldn't have any generators at all. And we could not go to the UN like we did the first time. And we had to share our space and stay within our space. And we only got 2 hours a day to be able to use a megaphone. But I have to admit that the New York Police Department was just incredibly accommodating. They really were. They were fantastic to our team. They saw the passion that we brought to the messaging, and they were really taken by the message and the fact that it was so clearly articulated, by our people, both in the placards that we had, and also in the folks that were speaking and really letting the world know what's going on. So I'm just going to call on a couple of people right now that were there, just so that they can give you a little bit of their own impressions of how things went. And then we'll talk about, what the press has to say about it. And we'll talk about the other protesters. So I'm going to call Mr. Filati. Of course, I know I'm killing your name again, Stephen. If you can unmute so that you can give the people just a little bit about what the atmosphere was there and how everyone was interacting, because I think that was something that was just incredibly beautiful to see and to experience. Stephen, where did you go? It looks like I lost him somewhere. Yes, it looks like he bounced. So I am going to pivot to Eugene. I'm going to ask you to unmute, and if you can give us your impression of those first couple of days, especially the 14th and the 15th, when we had those marches. If you can give us some description so the folks can start to understand a little bit about what we were going through.
What I can say is, I was there on those first few days, and the people that showed up came with prepared, and we're very enthusiastic about and passionate about what we are there for and the messaging. And then also the good thing is that the placards that we had has images of what we were showing to the world, and also all the people that gathered, we were speaking with one voice, and at one point we had to march to the Nigerian house, and accompanied by the detective that was assigned to us, and we stayed there and I guess made our noise and relayed our message, and also a group went to the in front of United Nations building. And they were so effective in how they communicated and how they carried the placard and the bullhorn that they had. And it was just when the traffic sign stops, they were able to move close to the gate of the UN, and we're able to to speak where a lot of people noticed and were gathered their attention. And then I noticed at one point a lady came, and a white lady and a guy came and hugged one lady that was holding the 5-year-old child that his head was hacked off, and it was holding those heads that were hacked off by the terrorist jihadists, and that was very, very effective.
Yes, absolutely. And some of the other things that happened there too at the UN was that quite a few of the participants were coming out and getting information, talking to people, taking pictures of the placards so that they could go in and communicate that information to their people as well. But what the thing that was, like the first day on the 14th, the emotion was sky high. It was sky high. And the detective that was assigned to us, he was just so impressed, just by the dedication and the passion that people were showing for their people, and really being able to, as a group, articulate that as a group, function as one. And when we went for the marches in the 14th and the 15th, to be very orderly, to be very focused on our messaging. And welcome, John, from Berlin. We're happy to have you. And it was just, amazing. And that day too, I believe in Canada, they were also doing something similar. So that was really very powerful. So now I'm going to call on Omoba. Omoba, thank you so very much. She provided a lot of the streaming support that we had, which allowed this message to go pretty much viral around the world. And in Nigeria, it's, the march trended the whole time that we were there. And so much so that the Garba Shehu was appealing. That's the first time the Nigerian government is pleading with the media to stop covering our event. So Omar Bashi is one of those that provided those services to be able to stream. Evangelist Ige was streaming as well. And we had TJ that was streaming. So we had, quite a few folks that were streaming to be able to get that information out to everyone. So Omaba, if you can unmute so you can give your impressions, because you were in quite a number of different places, and also
Tony had just joined in. I don't know if you noticed, Jean.
Sorry?
Tony just joined in.
I accepted him already.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so the thing is, I'm still not seeing. Omaba, go ahead and just give us that, and then we can pivot to Tony, so that while we still have the connection with him, we can talk about NINAS. But I just wanted to just, talk a little bit about, kind of what was going on out there. So what was your impression over those couple of weeks?
Oh, thank you so much, Jane. And thank you everyone for the job well done. I'm so happy, and it's like a booster for another upcoming event that will be emerging until we have self-determination in various nations. And as regarding the events that were just passed by, it was so emotional. It was an emotional moment, really, because I couldn't even hold myself, but I tried to saying, number one, the placards, the images displayed spoke a lot of volume, and coupled with the fact that with the people that came out are organic people. They are not just rented people. They are people who are feeling the pain of a terrible government. There are people who have come to, to speak their mind about the situation in the country. So everybody, it was not a pre-arranged, a pre-planned or rehearsed event.
Yes.
So everybody were just left to, say your mind, express yourself. So it was an emotional event for me. And the fact that we are able to expose the lies of the government, every nooks and cranny, we have our media strategize, everywhere people are gathered. So we were just trying to bringing up the different kind of pictures, events going at every corner. And so people couldn't just even miss any of those events, because
what
it
was happening
everywhere. And those who are hired, we were able to.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yes.
We'll talk about that in a little bit.
It was a very emotional one, but for me, it's a huge success, and it's another stepping stone upward in this agitation. And I want to commend the effort of Jean also, because, at a point when there's some uproar of which flag to raise and which flag not to raise, she was able to be on the top of that point also. And then, initially we were told that we may not be able to stand in the front of United Nations. And initially I was depressed. Are we just going to be in this corner? But eventually we were able to, it was as if we owned the front of the United Nations. And there we have international media that came, even a voluntary media that came and gave us a support that are not even part of us. And they were interviewed, they gave us their addresses, their email, and we gave them permission to spread the news everywhere. So it was a great success. And I know that the upcoming one will be a better one.
Absolutely.
And I want to let me use this medium to thank all the media we have, Njenje, we have San Fratis, we have Odudua TV, we have Odua Media, we have Yoruba Kingdom, we have so many media, but I just want to commend everybody and we have BBC Yoruba, because I met one of their representatives.
Yes, we had the Yoruba Pigeon, and on Friday, yesterday, we also had Arise, and so that was very good.
Yeah, thank you, Jen.
Okay, thank you very much. So welcome to Tony. I'm going to give Stephen an opportunity to speak, and then we'll go on and start talking about NINAS and what it's about, because there was a lot of questions about that, and a lot of questions about who can come how can they come, et cetera, et cetera. So that's going to be the exciting part. But Stephen, go ahead and give us your impressions of those couple of weeks, and what you've heard, what you've seen, and how you felt.
Thank you, Jean. My apologies. I lost signals just as I tried to respond the last time around. I want to say thank you for your leadership and direction, and being able to successfully run around those last 2 weeks like a chicken with his head cut off, trying to get all things in place. And we still had a very successful rally. Personally, it was such an electrifying 2 weeks experience that couldn't have happened any better way. In the parlance of finance, and I'll say that it was the highest return on investment, given the cost of capital that we put in.
Yes.
And I say that with all practicality, because the first week we thought we didn't have the turnout. It turned out that it wasn't the quantity of the turnout that made the first 3 days a rousing success, but the quality of the people that turned out from New York City and from all the four corners of the continental United States.
And from outside the US too.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, and thanks to them. I mean, the energy level was so high that Manhattan knew that there were visitors in town who were not there to picnic, but to make their voices heard. Yes. So loud that the Honorable New York Police Department had to bend over backwards, knowing very well that we Nigerians don't play by the rules anyway, so they had to bend the rules, yes, with us, to allow us to do things that our protocol naturally would not permit us to do. We took over from the front of the UN Plaza, where our neighbors, Cuba, were already there, but then we took over the whole street. That the employees of the UN Plaza knew something was going on out there. They just couldn't hear the sound, but the energy level was radiating even into that multi-level story UN Plaza for that first week. And taking that energy into the second week, we just colored New York City red. Notwithstanding the several blocks that were cordoned off because of the security level required for the different dignitaries, I mean, we made our presence known in more ways than one. Not the least of which was the LED truck that projected all the messages that we desired, and we put that into the consciousness of the people around Manhattan and some other parts of New York City where it had the opportunity to route. And the messaging that we had very focusedly projected on our section of the park, and because of the noise level on other sections of other participating rallies within the park area, just made our presence felt so much so that you could literally feel earthquakes in Nigeria resounding. Because when we marched on to the front of the UN Plaza, for a good 30 minutes, we took over the lobby of the Nigerian Consulate building. I'm talking about the front lobby now, all the way to the sidewalk. Yes, so much so that the consular officers were afraid to come out. They didn't even come out until later on in the evening. And then we went across the street and confronted the rally mercenaries, that I call them, the African American rally mercenaries, and we overwhelmed them with our energy level, because we sang, we danced, we protested, whereas they were just carrying some dead placards, waiting for the end of the 3-hour shift so they could collect their $50 mercenary fees. Overall, it was a rousing success that we don't think we could have gotten any better if we had $1 million to invest in it. And I mean that literally. Thank you very much for everybody that showed up and that supported us in spirit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Really appreciate that update. It was electrifying. That is the word I was looking for, and thank you for supplying that. It really was electrifying. Alexander, I see your hand is raised. I'm going to go ahead and bring Tony on board just so that we can maximize his time, because I know that he has other things to do, and then we will come back to you with your questions. So welcome, Tony. And we are looking forward to have a discussion that everyone was really asking us to do. And Stephen, if you can mute, that would be great. So welcome, Tony. We're going to be talking about NINAS. You know, we want to talk about NINAS. What is NINAS, and how do the blocks fit in with NINAS? How do organizations and how do the people fit into that? So if you want to start off with that conversation, that would be awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. And I say welcome to everybody. Thank you. I aligned myself with all the reports that have been made, because I had to follow and monitor all sides. I was in communication with all the quarterly sides. We fight, we come back because we have a business to do. And it couldn't have been put any better than what the earlier speakers have said in terms of the success that has been attained by that outing. And I report from inside Nigeria that the people now realize. I just got off the phone with some fellow I hadn't seen for quite a while. He used to be group executive director in NNPC. He knew me, and I think a friend of his sent him something that he showed, the materials he saw. He knew they were coming from me, and then he saw a video. I think it was that invitation to the event, and he just reported to me that in the place he went to discuss with people who were, the discussion came up in some very high level. When somebody is a retired group executive director of NNPC, you can be sure that the circle he's talking about must include all kinds of people at that topmost level. And what he expressed as what he took away from the general discussion around the matter, he was even afraid to then tell them that he was so connected with me because the government is frightened. The government thinks something extraordinary has happened and they didn't see it coming. And it was just the hand of God that moved it to where, even those who were trying to do mischief also helped to bring it to where it became something more people became interested in knowing what's exactly going on. So that brings us to the NINAS and what it is and how it connects with the blocks that are looking for exit, looking for extrication from Nigeria that's not working for them. Please let us understand very clearly that what we have as NINAS is the culmination of a 22-year journey that began right at the point the 1999 Constitution was introduced, because it was clear to those who had been on the subject matter before then, because there was NADECO, I was involved, and the unfinished business of NADECO was in not bringing to democracy. The soldiers found a way to bring back what they had imposed in 1979, and that became 1999. So from the first day in 1999, it was clear to some of us who had been around the subject matter that we now needed to get into a second round of liberation struggle. Because if this constitution is a mechanism by which we are going to operate that democracy that people have been fighting for which Abiola died and all kinds of things happened, then we had some more work, because we're back to the suzerainty that will suppress our sovereignty. That constitution is the mechanism by which the caliphate, demise on a scale was even deeper than what the British had. But for the British, we knew survive. For the Fulani, they will be here with us for all time except something happened to dislodge them. And so we got into that, into that plan of what do we do. The first task we then did was the organizations that were involved had to clear to the battlefield. What is it to solve this problem? We were sure we were going to have to get rid of that position. We were sure we were going to have to arrange ourselves with nations in which we're taking back our sovereignties, because that's something I wanted back. And so we made a map of the situation, especially from the point where in February of 2000, a few months into the democracy, the Sharia was introduced in those 12 contiguous states. We said, well, this is the starting point in this attempt to get rid of these fellows, because Sharia is mutually exclusive with democracy and constitutionalism. And since the adherents of Sharia owe the duty of faith to kill the rest as infidels, that was sufficient ground to say, look, we have a problem in this union, we can't be here anymore, because our signature was already inserted in the constitution that we didn't make, which took our assets and our sovereignties and everything that should have made us, people that are living in the 21st century. And so from between the two, that between the feudalist agenda that was now wearing the garment of jihad and Sharia all over again, we said the rest of us must now proceed with our self-damnation, because the people who impose Sharia have actually said their own self-damnation, and we interpreted it to mean that they had seceded from our secular union. Now, if you go back to the map, that NINAS map, you will see clearly that that Sharia belt is by itself. The Yoruba, we went from the known to the unknown. The Yoruba bloc, one language group, and they've been Western region before, of course, considering the portion that went into Kogi and Kwara, which the remedy we seek now is called the right to self-determination. And so those people will decide for themselves, either by plebiscite, whether they want to remain here or come join their their folk on the mainland, on the main block. And then what you have left in that map will be the stretch that is the middle belt, the Christian middle belt, and the eastern half of southern Nigeria. And then we decided, we realized we had to go and talk to them to explain to each of them. The Ogoni were crying, the Ijaw were shouting, the Shekiri were quarreling, everybody. So it became the task of the Lower Niger Congress. The Lower Niger Congress is, of course, the flag, the platform, the organization that had to go to do that work of talking to everybody to get them to see the nature of the problem, and to get them to see that if we do not come together in some way, looking beyond what happened in Biafra, looking beyond whatever was the reason for putting Midwest the way it was put at the time they first put it together. So it took about 6 years from that time we began these consultations to get them to see. And then in that same period, we were going to the Middle Belt, going to the Yoruba side to tell them that we have to work together to take down this monster. Otherwise, it is that same monster that is eating down the Yoruba, eating down the Igbo, eating down the Ijaw. And they began to listen. And there were organizations in each of the three parts. Of course, we went into Pronaco to call a meeting of everybody so that we can put all the problems on the table. It was after Pronaco that the people continued in their Buhari and co who were in Pronaco, and also Syed Abubakar, that is now Sultan. So it was after the Pronaco that they continued to move more towards their Sharia, that we now got more impetus to move more towards our determination to leave the union. So from the onset, in targeting that constitution for taking down, it was because we wanted to end the union. Let it be clearly understood that the intention from the first day, because there's been some mischief, deliberately created to create the impression that what we were pursuing is inferior to what people want. We know that the Yoruba is fed up. We know that the Igbo is fed up. We know Ijaw is fed up. And the people being killed in the Middle Belt are fed up with the Fulani that's doing the killing all over the place. But how do we engage the situation without getting killed all over again? That was why we went after the constitution that claimed that we have submitted our sovereignty. We knew from even share knowledge of jurisprudence that if that constitution goes down, the union will be at an end. How do we take it down? It required an alliance of all of those who are fed up to work towards that. And because we didn't have everybody on the same page from the first day, it took a long time, took about 15 years of getting them to see individually that if they will have to get out of this bondage, we have to work together because no one of us can take down that monster, that constitution by which the Fulani is able to prevail against everybody. And so it became the basis of the alliance of those organizations. Then we called it Movement for New Nigeria, which was actually Movement for No Nigeria. But if we called it Movement for No Nigeria, the system wouldn't have allowed us to get anywhere with it. But as time went on, more people turned up, and the people who were talking to began to come by themselves. So that by 2018, we had come to where we could say the people have come out. And so we had to, many people didn't even want to hear the name Nigeria at all, but it was a decoy and it served its purpose because the system thought we were all about fixing the Nigeria that's not working. They didn't quite look to see that the collapse of that constitution, again, their mediocrity interfered. They didn't realize that the collapse of the constitution is end of union. They thought collapse of constitution means writing another constitution. We left them in their ignorance because we have suffered from that ignorance in the past. And so it was now when, after the Freedom Park proclamation in December of 2018, that the nationalities had come forward. We decided to put the name Movement for New Nigeria aside, and then we went for the name that will tell the mission, Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination. So it is an alliance, number one. It is of the indigenous nationalities, separating us from these invaders that came from outside, the Fulani. Everybody else is in. If we're talking about Yoruba is one indigenous nationality, the eastern part, Igbo is one, Ijo is one, in the middle belt, Chief is one, Berom is one. So this is an alliance of these indigenous nationalities for self-determination, for retrieving their sovereignty. That's our mission. And so the strategy is for all of us to hold together and reject that constitution, then taking down that charter that brings us together with the Fulani, that admits them into our space, that give our access over to them, that put the guns in their hands. And if we do not go in that sequence, any one of us who says, oh, I'm fed up, now, they're going to shoot at the person like the Eastern Nigeria saw in 1967. That's what we're trying to avoid. And we've succeeded in, by the time we got to December of 2020, that we rolled out this constitutional force majeure, that is to enforce the will of the people. That's where we are now, to say that the people have repudiated that constitution because it wasn't made by them. And we've managed to consult with the international stakeholders in the matter, the US and even the UN itself. I can report to us that there are meetings outside what we're doing on the street. There are meetings going on at the highest levels inside the US government and inside that UN concerning the subject matter. And so we were able to present ourselves to the world powers, especially the ones with stakes in Nigeria, that the ISIS that was being pushed out of the Middle East had found a landing in Nigeria, and that our president was directly involved in what in the reinforcement they were trying to do with the sovereign assets of Nigeria. And so it became national security question for the US. It became serious matter for concern for the UN itself. And in the meeting that I had to address 2 days ago, I had to remind the diplomats who were talking to us in that meeting that it was the UN itself that raised alarm in 2019 by the Agnes Calama, the rapporteur mission, that Nigeria will snap, and that the refugee crisis in the face of the terror networks that were converging here, it's going to be something the world community will be dealing with, in pain. And so I'm just, trying to let us know that there are two transactions: taking down breaking the cage, because the Nigeria that is against the Nigeria that were held against our will with all the rules set by the enemy is like being in a cage. Igbo is in that cage, Ijo is in that cage, Yoruba is in that cage. Anybody who has to leave that cage, anybody who wants to get to any destination, Yoruba nation, Biafra nation, Ijo nation, anybody who wants to get to any destination will first of all find a mechanism for leaving that cage. So NINAS is that mechanism. It's a special purpose vehicle for all of us who want to leave that cage called Nigeria to our destination of our various the nations of our choice, or whatever formation we want to rearrange ourselves after we get rid of this monster that is tormenting all of us. So NINAS is the special purpose vehicle for getting us out of that cage, taking the constitution to end the union, taking transition, taking us into referendums, because it is by referendums that these things will be resolved finally, which was why we're talking to the UN and the Security Council through the US all the while. And therefore, the second leg of the task is who will manage the sovereignty Yoruba wants back from Nigeria. Nigeria is holding their sovereignty today. That is where the Yoruba organizations will have to now hold hands together to take charge of their own sovereignty when that cage is, broken. The eastern part take charge of their own, which is why we're doing charters of relationship in each of these other blocks. The George Ogoni, the Igbo will have to decide how they work out their internal cohesion, because Nigeria that is holding the entirety, the Fulani that's holding the entirety, will have to give it up. If they give it up, are we going to become 300 countries? So we have to bear that in mind at all time, that there are two transactions. Let's break the cage. We must work together to break the cage. And who takes charge of, how do we take charge of our various spaces? That's where the Yoruba will have to find a charter that will become constitution to settle among themselves how we're going to live. So I think that's what we needed to know about NINAS is the very special vehicle getting us out of this prison compound. And then various organizations are the ones who are going to take charge of what we're asking Nigeria to give up, as it concerns their own space. That's the relationship. And I think if we have it in mind, we'll get to where we're going sooner than later, because I can tell us that there's earthquake in Nigeria. This man is going to return from the US so completely diminished. His government has been delegitimized in the eyes of many at this time. And if we move enough, and I report to us, quietly, some of the political elected officers, some of them are beginning to listen, to take a closer look at what we were saying. If we combine what we have achieved in New York, with what we were doing with the US and UN, and then if we have political actors coming along with the populace that's already waiting for us, I don't see how we can fail. But we must be sure that these guys don't take us to this election coming. That is everything depends on whether we stop them or the rurals. If we stop them, victory is already here. If we can't stop them, we're going to have a big fight that will cost us blood. So our task is reduced to only that one item. And we have to be sure and clear in our mind that if we do just that, we'll come to the point where we'll go to transition and referendums, going forward. Thank you.
Okay, awesome, Tony. So I'm going to kind of ask you to kind of break it down a little bit, because that's a lot of information to unpack. This has been a journey, and the journey has been to bring the different ethnic nationalities within blocks that can now exit the Union Nigeria, right? So we're talking about bringing together the Yoruba bloc, and then we have the Lower Niger bloc, which is the Southeast and the South-South, and then we have the Middle Belt bloc. And those are the alliance territories that we're talking about that are going to be exited. So the question that people are asking is, okay, so here is NINAS and here is the blocks. What is the relationship? Just in simple terms.
Yeah, the relationship is like you have like a union office with a common problem, and NINAS is the platform, the framework for synergizing to solve that problem.
Okay, it looks like Tony was having some problems with the network, so let's just let me see if he's out. Maybe the next time he can go without his video, which might make it a little bit easier. Okay. No, Tony, we're having a difficult time hearing you. Maybe if you go off video, then the voice would be a lot better. Yeah, if you can go off video, you need to go off video and just use the voice.
Yeah, I've gone off video now. I've gone
Okay.
off video now.
Okay,
Right.
it's a little better.
So it is like I said before, NINAS is a cooperation platform, a special purpose vehicle to enable these regional blocks to get rid of this, to break the cage, to break the Nigeria that is holding them against their will. And that is where the constitution becomes central. It is that constitution that puts the army division in Ibadan, in Enugu, in Port Harcourt. Is that constitution that took all the control of arms into the federal government that is now in the hands of Fulani exclusively. Is that constitution that took all the assets, oil and gas of Niger Delta, ports of Lagos, everything that could have been the key economic assets of those blocks. All the reasons we want to leave now is because things are not working for anybody. Nobody has electricity. Nobody has security. Nobody has infrastructure. Nobody has equal playing field in terms of equal opportunities. It's quota system that excludes the best and all of that. So in trying to deal with it, we must get rid of that constitution. And so NINAS is a collective framework for initiating the potent force that can take down that constitution and free everybody from that bad arrangement. And then everybody will then begin to rebuild their own spaces. The Yoruba organizations and all the Yoruba platforms that are involved in this will then sit down to work out the task of rebuilding the Yoruba space falls on them, even from the point of this recovery of the sovereignty. So the business of NINAS is to get Nigeria out of everybody's space, and the process will be halting that constitution, terminating the life of that constitution, compelling a transition, because nobody can introduce shooting into the kind of thing we're doing now. We get into that transition and we go to referendums whereby people are going to vote, because that's where the UN comes in. Referendum
Absolutely.
to say whatever didn't work before, this is what we now want. And so let us not think, we're not going to reenact Nigeria of unitary Nigeria in which NINAS is going to be the owner of everybody. No, NINAS is only leading the charge now, and it's a special purpose vehicle that will do its task and then recede to the background, while the Yoruba organizations will take charge of negotiating their future when Nigeria is out of their way. Just to put some order around it and lay the ground for how we work out our relationships outside the Fulani that cannot relate with anybody.
Okay. So what I'm getting is this. We've got NINAS, which is the solution, but that solution is being held together by the alliance. So the Middle Belt Bloc, the Lower Niger Bloc, and the Yoruba Bloc are working to see that the NINAS solution gets implemented and it is successful. So it's sort of like NINAS is the umbrella that is over the blocks, but each block needs to take charge of its space. So Ilana is taking charge of the Yoruba space. The Lower Niger Congress is helping with the Lower Niger. The Middle Belt Forum is working with the Middle Belt and making sure that they have their own. Because if everyone remembers, we had the Western region, the Eastern region, the Midwestern, those were nations, right? And they each had their own constitutions, they had their own leaders. And so the NINAS is the vehicle that is going to make those nations become reality. But those blocks need to carry the NINAS. They need to be all under that NINAS message to make it happen. Okay. Yeah. So NINAS is not an organization that is going to, like Tony says, it's not going to be the federation, a federal government of whatever it is that people decide. No, it's just the vehicle. But that
a special purpose vehicle,
right,
for the sole business of taking down that monster called Nigeria, because Yoruba cannot do it alone. Yeah. All of the desire for Yoruba nation will be realized when the Nigeria that is occupying Yoruba space is brought down. NINAS is that collective that will have that capacity. And that's why the international community began to talk seriously to us when we had organized ourselves to that point, to say, between all of you, your local initiative is capable of dealing with this matter in a manner that doesn't require us sending boots to the ground to come and speak into the language groups that are not talking among themselves, because we were not talking amongst ourselves, which was why we were reluctant to, we were trying to explain to our brothers who were doing things that were bringing strife and difficulty, to the entire arrangement. We had to realize that it was the same enemy holding all of us down in one cage, and the NINAS is the coming together to break that cage. The formula is that constitution by which we are held down, being brought down. And the mechanism for bringing that constitution is all of us saying, look, beyond this date, we are not doing this anymore. We have already repudiated by solemn assembly. So the international community already knew that our various blocs have repudiated that constitution, rejecting the forgery of a constitution that puts our signature as authorization for our own damnation. So we've done all of this. That's why it took so much time. And once it's clear to us that the NINAS is not coming to become a replacement for Nigeria, no. The NINAS is just to provide us the facility to break that. By referendum, Yoruba will proceed to Yoruba nation. By referendum, the eastern part will proceed to their Biafra, whatever they choose to call themselves, But one thing has to come from the other. You can't start a journey from the destination. You start from your location and get to the destination. Yoruba nation is the destination. The location is Nigeria that we are rejecting. How do we go from that location to that destination? That's what NINAS is leading us and leading us to, so that we can move from where we are to, the same thing with Biafra, destination Biafra. How do we get from Nigeria? How do we get away from where we are by Nigeria that pointing guns at us? That's why we have to, we start from where we are, tackle the constitution down, go to transition, get to referendum, and then head on to our destination. But if we insist on starting the journey from the destination we seek, then we can sit in Lagos and shout Yoruba nation for 50 years. Nigeria will be holding elections and proceeding. Fulani and all the other people who share money will be doing just whatever they choose to do. We must disrupt that cycle. And it is instructed that constitution goes, and then we say that the documents of Domino 1 and 2, the exact mechanisms for how these things will happen. So we can, by ourselves, begin to put time frame for when they have to happen. If our people had listened a little earlier, we probably would have gone much further than this. But it was difficult because they wanted the finished product without thinking of the process that will bring that finished product. It is the process that we have managed to bring to where we can share with all, which was what NINAS had been. The NINAS is the new name to it, but it was the movement for new Nigeria, movement for no Nigeria that worked over a period of 21 years to bring it to where that force majeure to enforce the will of, because it was now the will of the majority, 75% population, 75% landmass, 95% human and material resources. Who can go wrong with that? At a time, the enemy we're talking about is the minority that has brought the terror networks into at the time the world powers were at war with that terror. Between the 3-4 things, the institution that cannot survive, and the interest of the world power in the arena, and then the alliance, which is by itself an answer to the brigandage of that Fulani minority. I think we can only fail if we choose to fail.
Okay, awesome. So I see that there's some questions. So I'll go to Gogo and ask you to unmute and go on camera so that you can ask your question.
Thank you very much.
You need to go on camera, Gogo.
Okay, bear with me. I'm just gonna try and do this while I'm mobile. Right, hi everyone. Sorry. I need to bring my hands down. 1 second.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, so I'm here now. Sorry. Hi, I'm so happy to be here, and I've listened to Tony talk about NINAS, and I did follow up the New York one, even though I'm in the UK. So I've had great feedback from it. Tomorrow on Clubhouse, they've organized an update for NINAS to talk about how we go from the UN march, what next? And so to give like a little feedback about the UN as well and how that went. So I got to hear about NINAS on Clubhouse, and it was from listening to Jean. And then I went further to do my own research about what it was about. Prior to listening to Jean, I didn't know about NINAS at all. And what I have found, so I went to read about it myself on the website, and I keyed into every of the demand. I keyed into the actual acts. It was very clear about what the movement or the demand is from the Nigerian government and what the steps are to achieving them. So I was quite clear for that. And because of that, I ran with the idea and I started to create space with a couple of people. I mean, I see Donald on there and a couple of people in Clubhouse started to talk more about NINAS and promote it, because the biggest thing I found was a lot of the youth and younger people did not know about this at all. And like me, they would ask questions as to how it will be achieved. And most of the times I say to them, if you are in one of those blocks that are listed on the map, if you are from the South, then NINAS is a movement for you to join. And like Tony rightly said, is a vehicle that would achieve a number of things that different nations are pushing on. So I'm quite happy and clear with that. So, but one of the key questions, and this is my question, Tony, if you can help clarify that. One of the key questions that we get asked about NINAS on Clubhouse is how would the United Nations come in? Because a lot of people, as we know, understand that these people cannot ask for a referendum for us. And they're saying, are these not interest people that we're going to? So the UN and the UK, for example, were very clear that they are very invested in the chaos happening in Nigeria. And would I say they're leveraging on it? And people would ask, would we still achieve anything by going to these people? That's my first question, which is a question that I get asked on Clubhouse about the process and the strategies of NINAS. My second question is, what next? And my third question is, so what next following the march? This is to prepare me for tomorrow's house on Clubhouse, because I know I'll get that question myself. And my third question is, sorry, I've just lost that one. And it's actually the main one. Aha, the publicity about NINAS. So a lot of people, I know a number of people on Clubhouse, some of which reside in New York. I know I was advertising, putting up the page on my profile to say join the march, and a couple of people did not or haven't yet heard about NINAS. How can we promote? And I mean, the grassroots and the people on ground and the Nigerian people as a whole are the people that would bring about these acts in general. So if people don't key into it and we see masses coming out, then I don't know. So is how is the publicity for NINAS, and where do you think the youth can come in terms of helping to drive that publicity, and how can we get to them? Because these are the key people, apart from the stakeholders, these are the key people that needs to get involved and needs to lend their voices for this to come to pass. Thank you. That's my 3 questions.
Okay, Tony, are you still there?
Yes, let me take the questions. The 3 I'll start with the last one, to say that it will be our collective task to disseminate this information. Everybody who wants the outcome we're advertising should please get into the task of informing all the other people they know who want the same outcome. For instance, I'm going to use the video for a moment, and then just to show the images, and then I'll go back to I'll just go off the video. Like we're already familiar with this as the alliance that now from the Sharia Caliphate.
Okay, Tony, we're still having some issue with your voice coming from there. So let me see, he's still here.
Okay. I'm off video, I'm back on voice, Now, maybe you have to display the domino 1 and 2, because that's what's going to answer a question about what next. The last speaker, please. The biggest task before all of us is to even acquaint ourselves with the workings of what we're doing. There's no conjecture anywhere. You've seen the map of the place. You've seen the constitution that is the problem. The mechanism by which that constitution will be brought down, if we go back to reading even the force majeure, the 5 points of demand, and let nobody kid himself or herself. The demands have become our agenda. We called it demand to be able to bring it to the public space, to say, look, this is the problem. When are we going to solve it? We gave timelines. Federal government 90 days. Then these governors come 30 days. Then we took 120 days to begin to talk to the masses, the people themselves, and the international community. And where we are now is far better than where we were when we began in December. And if those who already know can get on the task of finding out some more, there's a roadmap with a step-by-step milestone of what to do afterwards. Where we are now is that we've gone from enlightenment to mobilization, and we're heading to enforcement. What is that enforcement? The constitution, the mechanism, asking about the strategy. The strategy for getting to the outcome is to take down that constitution. The strategy for taking down the constitution is to prevent the renewal of the life of the constitution by way of another election in 2023. If you can bring them, are you able to bring domino 1 and 2 images to the screen so that everybody can see?
I'm working on it.
Right. If only I have it here, but if I go to video, again, it will become problematic. So there's because you can't go wrong with graphics. I think I can go to video for a moment. It will.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and do that?
For this moment, so we can see this. There's election. There's the constitution on one side. There's the constitution on one side. There's the union on the other side, and there's election on on the two sides of that constitution. There's election and there's the union. Is the union of master and servant we are rejecting? It is by the constitution that union is convened. It is by elections that constitution is reinforced and renewed every 4 years. Now you see these arrows pointing lower Niger, and the instead of having repeated that constitution, which was what it was 15 to do, to get everyone to repudiate that constitution as our strategy for taking down the union. We now say we will not go to another round of election, which is why it's become pivotal. The people say, look, benefit that can come of this constitution will not go. and then enforce not going by getting the parties to close shop. That's all the tasks we are required to perform now. This is what will happen. If we do this, once we find sufficient push to that lever, the election goes, we're rejecting the constitution goes, and then the union is down. That's why we call it domino. This is domino 2. We arrived at domino 1 in December when we got the 3 blocks to come out and say they won't go to another election. We are fighting to get to domino 2, where in furtherance of that decision contained in that constitutional force majeure, we tell the political parties to please close shop. There's no business they're doing other than the election that will reinforce the life of that constitution in 2023. But it's not boycott we're talking about now. Some people are going to mix it up. We're saying close shop, shut down now. Because if we don't shut down and they get into the journey to election, you won't be able to stop them in the last stages that will now go to voting. But if we tell them, look, party A, party B, party C, any one of you that wins the election will have to swear to defend and uphold that constitution. It doesn't matter how good your candidate is. It doesn't matter how good your intentions are. If you go to this election under this constitution, we are going to have the 36 states. We're going to continue to have the 7 and so forth local areas. We're going to have to the 68 items exclusive, everything that is reason for the calamity that has befallen us. We're going to have the federal government still controlling the guns exclusively and all our assets. So the political parties are the ones that renew the life of that, because only the political parties contest elections. And all of them subscribe to that constitution. And we're saying, why should we go to renew the life of that constitution after enduring it for 22 years since 1999? So the choice we have to make now is whether we want to fight with our cousins and nephews who want to go and contest election to save our own lives by stopping them, or we allow them to go and have their fun. Only 1,500 of them will be sworn in if they go to election. The rest of us, 150 million people, will be in the danger of having the Fulani turn up at our doorstep with AK-47. If we say we don't want to quarrel with them, we are now authorizing the continuation of what's going on. Fulani needs that constitution to be saved because we have defeated it. Our people don't know it's been defeated. So they are still advertising election. And a few renegades amongst us are still discussing with them election. For what purpose? What's going to change? Everything we are rejecting is flowing from that constitution. And the parties know that. And nobody is going to win and not swear to uphold that constitution. So where has it landed us? It empowers them to continue the onslaught they are doing against us. And if we don't stop the parties, we are bargaining for AK-47 to turn up at our doorstep. So we have, the materials are all there for how we go from where we are now in the next period, because we have a 16-box milestone document. We are done. We are done completely with 13 boxes. We were in the 14th box when Corona came. That is programs and activities that will lead to the destination. Destination being referendums, for determining our future. Where we are now is the enforcement of that constitutional force majeure that takes down that constitution and compels a transition without creating room for anybody shooting at us, which is why we've been pleading with everybody to calm down and try to understand what we're doing and see how it takes them to the destination they want without exposing anybody to being killed in the manner the Fulani will want to. And we're almost there. So the next steps are in print and have been in print for quite a while. Just that this is the time people are coming to learn of it. So the few who now know should please take those materials in the clubhouse. Will ensure that in the clubhouse tomorrow, some of those strategy materials will be shared, because they are now at the point where more people will need to know about them. And we've gone past where we're hiding it from the enemy so that they don't go ahead of us. It's too late for them to do anything about it now. So we can share more freely some of the materials that constitute the strategy documents. But I've just summarized it, that it is by shutting down the journey to election that we are going to take down that constitution, because we repudiated the constitution. And the reason we're not going to afford the elections under it is because we want to terminate the life of that constitution, which is contained in our force majeure proclamation. If we go and read those 5 points, of demand, which has become our 5-point agenda. It doesn't matter. We're not waiting for federal government to agree with us. The right we're trying to assert is the right to self-determination. It's inalienable. It doesn't depend on anybody agreeing with us. It only depends on we organizing ourselves sufficiently. I was directly involved in how the instrument came from the UN in 2007. So I know what I'm talking about. It's not something that we're waiting for somebody to approve of. To the question of whether we have to go to people who are causing the problem, and I remember that that's one of the questions. My recollection is that that's one of the, that's my understanding of whether the British going to them. We are not going to them in the sense of come and help us. What we did, looking back at what the role of the British had been from the beginning, they created this problem knowing that it would be so. And it was their business interest they were doing, and they were trying to protect. It implanted the Fulani to hold the ground as their agent deliberately. We have documents, and some of those documents are going to be available for those who want to see them. We have documents that show, documents that predate 1914, that show that the British knew exactly what they were putting together. They knew that
Tony,
these people were...
Tony, can you talk
Hello?
a little bit about that 1912 document? Because I think people would find that to be interesting, because we've been focused on 1914, but the 1912 is very shocking.
Yes. Now, we at the time we were putting this plan together, we needed to get to the root of how we even came into this union in this manner that make us underdogs. And so our fathers that were alive, Chief Nohoro, all the ones who went to Lancaster House, we tried to find out from them. They didn't know. So we had to go the way WikiLeaks gets about looking for things. We broke into the archives that we needed to break into using all available technologies. And we found documents that, contains the step-by-step of what the British did to arrive at 1914, step by step. They had these protectorates, Lagos colony, Oil Rivers colony, all the treaties they had with us. They first pieced all those territories together in 1906 to form the protectorate of Southern Nigeria. And then between that 1906 and the 1914 that they made the announcement, they went step by step, merging what they needed to merge in order to turn it, without talking to the owners of the place. They were just doing it, them and the Caliphate. You know, the Caliphate came earlier than them. The Caliphate came by jihad in 1804. So it was actually a joint venture. What we need to know at this time is that the creation of Nigeria was actually a joint venture between that Caliphate that arrived in 1804 and the British that arrived in the 1860s. To the exclusion of the owners of the land. They were both foreigners. They were on an invasion for economic, purpose, and they brought together what they had by conquest. The Caliphate had the territory that we now call Sharia Belt, and the British had the southern territories. It was the terms of merging them that we find in the documents we're talking about. The terms of merging them clearly put the Caliphate in charge and ahead of all the other people. For instance, it is in that document that we saw what we call the Nigerian system, in which things are put upside down. Mediocrity, ignorance, and terror was embedded. It's in black and white that they will have to elevate ignorance to where it rules above knowledge. And so what became quota system later, which is now in our constitution, was a matter of principle as at that time to lower the bar for the people they're going to put in charge, so that Buhari without a school certificate can go all the way to becoming a general, becoming a head of state and then president 2 times over. Whereas all the people who are a lot more qualified than him are not accepted into the army. It was a principle and it has become the quota system we know today. The corruption we see today, they have principles that became constitutional provisions that now translate into the kind of appropriation provisions we have in the constitution. What was the plan? The British came here to take whatever they can take for their own use. And by the time they were working out what would be their appropriation arrangements, in that 1912 document, they already made provisions for the people they put in government house by themselves. They authorized them to take 50% of whatever they find in treasury into one pocket for their own, whatever they do with, they choose to do with it. Then the balance is also to be managed in such a manner that creates the impression that it's public fund, but it can be, they're just looking like, but it's all at their discretion what their preferences are for using even that 50%. When you read from how it is, captured in the document, you will then understand how we came about the situation where half of what comes in is taken as what do they call it, a security vote by both president and governor. They don't account to anybody for that portion. And then the balance of what you find in the treasury, which you find in the appropriation provisions for how it is managed, those appropriation provisions actually give the spare keys to the treasury, to the heads of the executive branch. Nigeria is the only country in the world where the president can, under the constitutional arrangement, go to take all of what you find in treasury without reference to anybody, and the governors in the same, and they have immunity. All those things were contained in those documents. We're talking about the principles by which that Nigerian system will be operated. And you go from impunity to immunity that sustains it. You go to the appropriation that gives the spare key to the executive branch. You go to all of the things that now has brought Nigeria to where it is, in which the fate of all, even the matter of the rule of law. In other countries, the executive, the police is put under the watch of the judiciary, so that at any point in time, the judge makes an order. Somebody is carrying out that order. But in that document that predated 1914, they turned it upside down to say that it is the executive that will decide what they will obey, what they will enforce in the orders of the judiciary. And so it's only in Nigeria that the head of the executive is the one appointing the judges, is the one holding the money by which they operate, and can remove them or install them. You saw what happened to the Chief Justice of the Federation, Onogen. At the time they were getting to election, they knew Onogen as Chief Justice of the Federation of Nigeria will not, may stop them in what they were planning to do with the election. And so they just removed him and put this herdsman that they call Tanko as the Chief Justice of the Federation. And what has anybody done about it? Because it was within the competence of the executive branch to do all of what they did. So these documents I'm talking about is where those principles that have now produced the master servant Nigeria came from. They carried it from that point to the order in council of 1913 that became the amalgamation of 1st January of 1914. They carried it through to 1922 to 1946. I'm sure you heard about McPherson and Littleton and Richardson constitutions. All those things were maintained all the way to the Lancaster House. They managed to retain what they could retain. Then the war came, the 1966 came. Everything we had altered from what they put in place, they managed to put back, which was what they collected in 1979, that became 1999. So our sovereignty had been suppressed. What we have as Nigeria, our project, had been a suzerainty, a replacement suzerainty from the British we were seeing before. Is now a local suzerainty organized by the Caliphate, the Fulani. And so we are fighting for our independence all over again. Anybody who doesn't understand that should understand that. That is our freedom we are fighting for, like those who fought the British off. We are now fighting off these local colonizers. And we have to be very careful in how we do it, because their answer to every question is to shoot at everybody. But what did we do in response to that question of God? Our alliance already puts them as a minority, even without more. They know that if they try to start a fight now, they're going to be isolated into the hopeless minority they are. That's why they opened the borders to bring Fulani from all over the place and to bring ISIS to support them. Even now, their numbers are nowhere near what they need to be able to prevail. It's just our ignorance that is sustaining them. Second, we were able to get to the US because we knew the matter would go to the UN. Who in the UN? The British stood with them in 1966, 67. In the one that became the Biafra War. The British went to the Security Council, took the oil that they already had, because Shell was alone at the time in this place. The British, seeing that the entire stock of oil will go with Eastern region that wanted to leave Nigeria, they took over the task of stopping the East. And so they took the entire 100% stock, 40% of it, to the UN Security Council. They gave the other 4 members of the Security Council concessions from that 40%. That's how Gulf oil got here, the Chevron, for the US to look away from the killing they were going to do. That's how F got here for France. That's how Egypt got here for Italy, all members of Security Council at that time. Russia had oil at home, and so didn't need any part of that. What they gave Russia was an open order to supply all the hardware for that war. So Russia supplied the jet fighters, they call MiG jet fighters, the Ilyushin armored tanks, and the AK-47. That's how Nigeria came about AK-47. Now, the money to pay for all of that, Gowon has signed off on the concessions as written by the British. So look, leave it to us. We will stop them. But you see, sign these papers for us. So Gowon signed off the oil and gas assets of Eastern Nigeria for 50 years to Britain to do with it as they like and give only from part of their profit to the NNPC they eventually set up. And so we are still living with that arrangement. That's what this PIB you see. Nobody has been able to unravel what they put in place that makes Nigeria just an appendage to. They own their assets. They own their assets. And so I'm just reporting to us that all these things were designed to be so. What the British did at that time, they are not able to do now, because we were able to get to the US to point to them their national security interest that was going to suffer in our sub-region. If I had the facility of a map, again, I would have shown us the West African sub-region and what ISIS is doing in the sub-region. So we told the US that if you do not come now, ISIS has moved away from the Middle East and they are now in the West African sub-region, welcomed by Nigeria at the level of its president. And if you will not listen to us, they are going to reinforce themselves and build up that caliphate they wanted to do with Iraq and Syria. And if that happens, the US will pay in blood. The US took 7 months to listen to what we were showing them. The evidence was brought about the involvement of our president in welcoming ISIS into our sub-region. Our president was at the center of what became Boko Haram the way we know it. Our president was at the center of how Boko Haram merged with the ISIS to form ISWAP in 2014. And the moment he pushed his way to power, his kinsmen declared themselves Fulani herdsmen that began to sack communities into what we have seen to date, sweeping southwards. And so we got the US to see their national security interests in that field. It was because the US took interest on account of their own national security that they began to talk to their allies. I'm sure we also in April, when in a space of 48 hours, the US, the EU, and the UK took a common position in alignment with the contents of our force majeure. They told Nigeria that guns will not feature in this debate because they have their own objective in the field. The ISIS that is here, it is by that our local initiative that they're going to be able to contain that threat. It is by this force majeure that constitution that empowers the Fulani to do what they're doing will go down. So the US and its allies, you remember.
Gogo, please mute your line.
I didn't go the right way, but I know.
Gogo, please mute your line.
Right. So we will recall that in 2019 and the early part of 2020, the former US President Trump had built a 67-country alliance to address this issue. You remember when they put Nigeria on special watch list for these ethno-religious killings. We also remember when I think it was in March of 2020, Nigeria was designated a country of particular concern and state sponsor of terror, along with Iran. And so we have all of that. Let nobody, Britain that ruled the seas in 1967 is not in the bed that cannot today put a carrier to sea. Britain does not have one carrier because it cannot afford it. It's no longer in a position to do the kind of thing it did against us the other time. But we didn't leave it to chance. We went to a superpower, the US, that had national security imperative in our sub-region. And our pursuit is aligned to that interest. And therefore, They are on our side. That was why I'm sure I reported a few minutes ago that we've been having meetings with them at the highest level concerning what is going on, especially since after Afghanistan. What we agreed to do to solve this problem so that it doesn't consume us and create massive problems for them too is what they are going back to now, because the elections of November last year seem to have slowed things down, but the operatives have come back to going back to what they agreed to do with us. I can assure us that we have what we need at the UN, including the Security Council. I can assure us we have what we need in the US, concerning what to do with these people pointing guns at us. If we do our own part, the national strategy, the national security strategy of the US is actually anchored on this local initiative because of the broad policy of not wanting to send boots to the ground in foreign places. I'm just reporting all of this to us in the background for us to know that the plan we have deployed, we're not just scratching our heads, every step of the way. We have a written plan and we're going to share it, we're going to authorize the sharing of the aspects of that written plan that people need to have as answers to these questions that are going to be recurring. We have a plan, everybody can interrogate that plan, and we can measure by ourselves where it will land. That's why I want to drop that.
Awesome, awesome. Now, so that kind of answers that question. I think the question that Gogo was asking was, why are we going to the United Nations and to those countries when they are not our friends, so to speak? So that kind of puts that in perspective about the fact that we have our different objectives that are aligned in this case, and that the world is taking notice as to what's going on. The UN itself, through its couple of special rapporteurs, one in 2019 and another in 2020, made it clear to the world that Nigeria, if it blows, it's not just going to blow Africa, it's going to blow the world. And that's part of the information that we were communicating while we were in New York, making it clear, that Nigeria is on the point of snapping and something needs to be done quickly. So I'm going to go and take some questions now. We don't have a heck of a lot of time, and so we might have to talk about the fake protesters in the next broadcast. So I'm going to come to Stephen. Stephen, do you have a question? And if you can keep it short so that we can move on to the other questions. Thank you, Steve.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jane. Tony, thank you for the exhaustive work that you've been doing on ground zero for this self-determination effort. But notwithstanding those, there is still a pervasive misunderstanding of the role of NINAS in the self-determination effort, to the extent that a number of the alliance members, organizations, not the alliance members themselves, but the supportive nationality organizations, consider NINAS to be just another group in the COG, with the implication that we are finding resistance in raising funds to fund the activities of NINAS. Case in point was the recent New York rally. In my explanation to them, and to bring it to a layman's level, I've described NINAS to them as a class action attorney for which the class members are the alliance members, such that when you have a class action attorney, you are individually obligated to support the activities of advocating for you before the United Nations Court, if I can use that term. Is that analogy reasonably accurate to get them to a layman's understanding of what NINAS does, or would you propose another analogy that will bring NINAS' role to a layman's level? Thank you.
Yeah, that analogy creates the impression that because there have been deliberate misinformation crafted for the purpose of deflecting people's attention from where the solution is, to where others can make money pretending they are solving the problem. That's what happened. The people that crafted that narrative of, as if we're just a marginal group of people who want to come to take advantage because maybe we have better education or better exposure or better access. That's the impression that, was being created. But the reality is that what became NINAS had gone through. Did you hear about Pronaco when it happened? Have you ever heard about Pronaco?
Yes.
Did you hear about Pronaco?
Not recently. I thought you were saying Nadek or something like that.
No. Did you get to hear about Pronaco when it happened? Pronaco.
No, sir.
I'm going to share that information on the platform.
Okay, right. Okay. So I'm just informing us that what has been presented as NINAS is a continuous process that has taken 22 years in the making. And Pronaco that happened between 2005 and 2006, in fact, it was first announced in 2004, before Obasanjo jumped in to set up what became 2005 national conference. Pronaco was pro-national organizations. It was a sovereign meeting of the ethnic nationalities across Nigeria, including the Fulani. And you are hearing the voice of the one at the center of that process, which was the first action taken after our research for what the problem was and what the solution should be. And we had 164 ethnic delegations that sat for 2 years. The US sent observer mission to that conference. The EU sent observer mission to that conference. So we didn't just go bump into the US last night to tell them about what's happening to us. They've been following this process since 2005 when they sent observer mission to that conference of the nationalities of Nigeria, sovereign conference. And so we went from that Pronaco to 2007 when we went to court to say that we didn't make the 1999 constitution. And the person speaking now was a lawyer that filed that suit, challenging the legitimacy of the 1999 constitution. And I had 10 plaintiffs, the first of which was Chief Anthony Enohoro, the very man that moved the motion for independence. The second plaintiff, Wole Soyinka Professor. Third plaintiff, C.C. Ono. I'm sure most of us know Bianca's father. The fifth plaintiff, Chief Bankole Oki. Bankole Oki, senior advocate. At the time, he was the chairman of the body of senior advocates in Nigeria. Bankole Oki, as permanent secretary of the Ministry of Defense, was the one that carved out the Nigerian Air Force from the Nigerian Army. We had Bishop Bolanle Bonigi of Akure, retired Anglican Archbishop. We had Fred Agbegbe, the president of Lower Niger Congress, who also had been involved. His first job from university in the UK, he has 2 PhDs in law from 2 UK universities, but he began his career at the Commonwealth headquarters. He joined the Commonwealth services the same day as Emeka Anyoko to tell you the kind of people who have been in this process. Then we have Ojukwu, I'm not sure I've mentioned him, as another plaintiff. And we had Asari Dokubo was undergoing trial for treason at the time, and was put them as plaintiffs. That was what collapsed the treason, because we wanted to test whether Nigeria has any answer to the challenge, to their title document by which they are laying claim to the whole country. They didn't have an answer, and it was that suit challenging the legitimacy of the 1999 Constitution that collapsed the treason trial of Asari Dokubo and Wazirike in 2007. So we moved on from there, having established that Constitution was a fraud. How do we enforce? How do we bring it down? We went on to calling the nationalities to now begin to take actions, get ready to take back their sovereignty. We asked them to hold their solemn assemblies, tell the international community that you are no longer willing to work with this forgery. The Lower Niger had their own solemn assembly, and you can test what I'm telling you by just going to YouTube or Google now. Solemn Assembly of the Peoples of the Lower Niger, 27th April 2007. 15 in Port Harcourt, where the Ijaw, the Ogoni, the Anang, the Efik, the Urobo, the Bini, the Igbo, under one roof, took a decision that this constitution will no longer be basis of union they will be involved in. And they mandated the Charter of Relationship to be still. Well, how are we going to relate amongst ourselves if we are rejecting Nigeria? In September of 2017, the Yoruba gathered in Adamasigba Stadium in Ibadan with all their governors present. Oni was there and many of their political leaders. They filled the stadium and it was solemn, Yoruba solemn assembly. I'm sure you remember that. It was all a part of this process. Then the Middle Belt on the 18th of July in 2018 were able to do their own. What we were doing in all that time was to send the message to the international community ahead of when we begin to enforce our decision to reject the union defined by that constitution under which we are being killed. So it's not a NINAS is just the latest mutation in terms of name. We went from Pronaco to Movement for New Nigeria to even change Nigeria. I'm sure you heard when Bakare came out talking about Save Nigeria. We had transmuted to what we call Change Nigeria. Bakare came and pretended in our midst for about 9 months. We didn't know he had political intentions. So he thought he could take the crowd countrywide to go to contest election with Buhari, not knowing that Buhari had been in our midst and we had done away with him because he came back to tell us after the conference of Pronaco that he will do what we have decided if we supported him to win. I told him in the meeting where he came to make that request that the question is not one of to government house. If you believe in what we have agreed upon, let us do it before you go to government house. Otherwise, if you decide to go to government house under this constitution we are rejecting, you will have us to contend with. That was 2007. He lost that election, lost the 1 or 2-11 when Bakare had come to try to mess up. We shut down that Change Nigeria platform. Did you see Save Nigeria again since after that time? You understand? So it is something, it's a machinery, like a submarine, big submarine that have been sailing quietly. It was designed to be a surprise. The British didn't see it coming. All of the Caliphate didn't see it coming. The only time we came close to being found out for the size of what we were doing, you remember in 2005 when the US intelligence raised alarm that there was something going on that could bring Nigeria to ruins by 2015. It was 2005. Did anybody hear about John Negro Ponte on Nigeria that was going to collapse? It was when they stumbled across this plan. They came to Nigeria to investigate it. They went to a Nohoro, and the Nohoro called me in. The Consul General of the US was in that meeting with a few other people from State Department. Sometime 2004, when we had announced that we're going to have a conference of the owners of Nigeria. So it's not something for people who are saying who are thinking that NINAS is just another one of the organizations. Let us ask them which of them had diagnosed the problem to the point of breaking into accounts to find out what the British did. Which of them had identified the constitution of that as the problem that had to be solved in terms of taking it down to end the union? Which of them had moved from their own space to the other spaces in that country? We went, all the groups were carrying arms at the time. All the groups that were fed up with Nigeria to the point of, resorting to violence. We were able to persuade them to come along, put their guns aside. They decided to occupy his volunteer force, the Ghanaians and his OPC at the time. We were able to get all of them to come and be part of that conference to form a consensus that will take down what we were rejecting. And so let those who are talking about, another NINAS being another, it is the cumulative, outcome of many years of involving the entire country, minus the caliphate that didn't want to come along at some point. That's what has become NINAS. So
Okay, sorry, Tony. We have a few more minutes to go, so I wanted to see if
speak in the Senate, so speak in the House.
Yeah, I wanted to see if I could take some more questions because we're going to be ending in a few minutes here. We've got a couple of hands up. So I will go to, because that was a great explanation as to, what NINAS is doing. And I will share the document with everyone that shows all the different stages that this has gone through, because that gives you a better appreciation of what NINAS is doing for the Blocs, has been doing for the Blocs, and that has been powered really by the Lower Niger Congress and funded mainly by the Lower Niger Congress. So now I'm going to go to Alexander. Please keep your question really short because we only have a few minutes left. Alexander, go ahead and ask your question, please.
Thank you very much, Mama Jane, and thank you for everyone in the house. I don't really have a question. I just want to commend the NINAS. It baffles me, and I want to say this is God's project. And Tony Nandi is born for this project. And all the leadership of NINAS, how you came together, it's a divine arrangement. And the goal of NINAS will be achieved.
Amen.
By the grace of God, I live in Edo State, and NINAS has become one of my prayer projects. And by the grace of God, we shall get there. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Amen. Amen. Imoro, you are up next, and please keep it short. Imoro, go ahead and unmute.
Okay, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. Well, quickly, first of all, I just want to say the name, are we NINAS or I say NINAS? So I need to be corrected. I say NINAS, but is it NINAS or NINAS? And then
NINAS.
the second, but
It's
anyway,
NINAS.
NINAS, okay.
Call it what you may.
Okay.
It's
Then
abbreviation. It's an
As
acronym,
long as
so
you call it freedom.
But anyway, it's communication. We know what we're talking about. Then the other thing I want to ask is, well, first of all, also, I do want to say thank you, Mr. Nadi, for all that you're doing. I met you in the summer of.
Sorry, can you go ahead and ask your question because we're getting ready to go off air. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, so it was an eye-revealing time. I just wanted to say that my question is simply this: if the
Okay, you need to go off camera.
that not
You need to go off camera because we can't hear you.
I'm sorry?
You need to go off camera because we cannot hear you.
Off camera, so I hear you.
Yeah, no, my question is, if the British signed a 50-year agreement on the oil with, I guess, the government would go on, is that time not expired now?
Yeah, that was in 1960. That was in 1967. It expired 2017. That was what drove the 2019 election. That was what drove the 2015 election into the overdrive we saw. They did not want this president from that part of the country to be the one in the at the time the renewal will be due in 2017. That was what consumed Jonathan's presidency. Nothing beyond that. Everything is make-believe. Okay. The decision to stop a person from that part from being in the time the renewal will happen. That was what brought the coalition against Jonathan in the manner we saw.
Okay. We have
finished in 2017.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have a couple more questions. Let's see. I think Ibe, you had your hand up if you want to ask your question.
Okay, thank you, Jane. My name is Paul Ibekeme.
Ibekeme.
Yes, I'm in Massachusetts. Please, I want to thank Mr. Tony for all he has been doing. I've been following his activities and comments, and he has done a lot himself and his group. My question is this: how can we?
Thank you. Go on.
Okay, now that we are moving forward, and we've seen that some of these governors in the south and the governor of Benin, in particular from the Middle Belt, have seen what these Fulanis are up to. Is there any way NINAS can open, even if it's a backdoor channel, to start to tell them what NINAS is doing, to get them to join NINAS and stop anything about election.
Okay, Paul, I'm going to answer that. Yes, that started back in March when we had the War Press Conference, and we're going to start talking to people. So I'm going to go to the next question. Sorry.
Sorry, please, Jane. Sorry, please, Jane. Not just the governors alone, but other political actors in the South and Middle Belt. So
yes. The answer is yes, Paul. The answer is yes, Paul. We gotta move on. The answer is yes. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Evangelist, you gotta keep it really short, really short. So you're up next.
Yeah. Thank you, Jane, and everybody for what God has used us for. Yeah, Tony. I just need you to quickly tell and clarify to everybody here at this meeting right now, and especially indirectly to all these people gathering to have another rally, the 3 days rally at the Washington, D.C. next weekend. Okay, the reason why NINAS in conjunction, NINAS headed by Akintoye, chairman, in conjunction with Ilana Modua, came up with that release. What is it called again? That disclaimer. And these people went ahead to release another disclaimer against Nina and Baba Akintoye disclaimer, which was very insultive to me. That's how I see it personally. What is Nina's stand presently for and against or about that next weekend 3 days rally? Even though they have removed iPod's name in Nnamdi Kanu's picture and stuff, like they're trying to read this thing because
stop sharing your screen. Thank you. Go ahead.
So because I see some of the members of that group on this meeting, I'm sure some of them still need orientation. Some of them need to be more educated and enlightened. So what do you say about that 3 days this thing rally? Because personally, I can't be putting all this effort and some people are trying to draw us back, 10 steps back when we make one step forward. Thank you.
Okay, Tony, are you still there?
I didn't hear his question.
The question is about the mega rally that is scheduled to go to Washington. That's supposed to be going on in Washington, and the fact that previously they said that the information with IPOB that they had moved away from that, and so Evangelist is asking, given that they have said that they are no longer working with IPOB for that rally, what is NINA's position now?
Well, the NINA's position is already contained in that disclaimer. Said that if they work with the Yoruba coordinating platform Ilana, because we wanted to make sure that everybody involved gets to know exactly what we're doing. They can make their own internal arrangements of who is taller and who is shorter in-house. It won't be anybody's business, but it has to be what we set in place to do that is being done. If they've done away with IPOB, I would think that they will have to write it and say so that, because it's not just what we think. The Nigerian system is going to take advantage of anything they find there. We already saw it from Garba Shehu and Gbajabiamila Miller. They were laying a foundation for how they could disrupt us. They've not found any ground for being able to disrupt us all this while. But if they find something to latch onto, they are going to disrupt NINAS in the homeland. And it's not overseas that we're going to solve this problem. We need to keep engaging them here until we bring them to the ground. And so if the organizers of Washington rally, with the video that went out about involving showing that they were planning it together with IPOB, I would say that they only need to clarify in writing, some public notice that these people are not involved because of that video. If it was a matter of we heard that they were planning. That's a different thing. But that video has gone everywhere, and it was becoming basis of linking NINAS, since our chairman and Lana people, whose emblem also appeared in that advertisement, are connected with NINAS intricately. So it's just a question of if they can do a public notification explaining those people and explaining that video as something that was unauthorized, however they put it. Then we go back to what we wrote in that disclaimer, that we have no problem. We invited everybody to come, but not the ones that will cause problems for us. Let them just let it be put in the public space that the organizers of the rally, they have to disown that video and say that they're not involved with these people anymore. If we leave it hanging, and it may leave a gap that can become a problem for us. NINAS really has NINAS has no quarrel with anybody, but let us say it clearly so that we don't leave room for the enemy that's looking for how to create a problem for us. Let us say clearly we're not working with these people on account of some difficulties that could arise from it, or whatever reason we give, because we gave them. These people had 7 years to listen to us. We begged and begged until it became bloodshed in the East. And it can only get worse. NINAS all of us may fail if we don't find a way to, let them be. They can come, but let them put away their colors. They can come if they want that outcome. We made a broadcast inviting them.